All right, everyone, we're live. Welcome to today's stream. So many of you will recognize Nick. He runs the channel Vegan Equilibrium. And you will definitely recognize him if you're from the vegan anti-natalist community, because he's been putting out a lot of anti-natalist content and stuff over the years. And he's had me on for streams before. We've discussed a lot of stuff. He's been on the streams of other YouTubers as well. But he seems to have had a change in heart values recently. I don't even know what they are. And just before we start the stream, I'd like to say I don't actually know what his reasons are. I just thought it'd be interesting to get him on to see this, because Nick is one of the, when I think of vegan anti-natalists, Nick is like one of the first people that actually comes to mind. So this is definitely, it's a big turnaround, isn't it, Nick?
I don't know. It's not like a big turnaround because I'm not like going in the other direction, really.
Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know. I think it's a moot point.
Let's get into it then, because I guess we might as well get the ball rolling if you mention something like that. So yeah, in as much detail as you want, explain your reasons. Tell you what, tell us why you were an anti-natalist, and tell us why you're not now.
So I was claiming to be an anti-natalist because I think I felt like it was the ethical and just position to take. You know, the same reason I call myself a vegan and that I live a vegan lifestyle. I am not positive that it is. I'm no longer positive that it's the ethical, like the most ethical position to hold, that I should be trying to convert people to being anti-natalist. I don't know that that's the most ethical stance.
So just to elaborate on why you were an anti-natalist, I guess it was for the same reasons that I am. So you'd assign a negative value to birth. You believed that it's better that we don't exist than that we do, not just for us, but also for non-human animals, i.e. the only thing you create, the only thing you're guaranteed in creating in a human when you create them is suffering. You can't guarantee anything like pleasure or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all the suffering that we cause just by coming into existence. I mean, even you and I, who are vegan now, we were abusing animals for however many years. We've caused a lot of suffering and abuse in our lives just from the amount of time that we have been alive, which is one point I always push back with when people say to me in the vegan community, but George, aren't you glad you were born? Well, okay, I'm not sure that the thousands of animals that I paid to abuse before I was vegan were glad about that. Would you agree those were the reasons that you're an anti-natalist?
Yeah.
We were very similar in that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt like, wow, it's like, how could you bring someone into this hellhole? And like, it just seems wrong and cruel. And I think, and honestly, like, and a lot of that was like a lot of that is a projection of my own mental state, when it comes to existence. Definitely struggled with a lot of depression and resentment, regret, self-loathing, all the whole spectrum of negative emotions, anxiety. So,
well, okay, then that gives me, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. And I've gone through, issues as well as everyone has. I'm sure everyone here who's watching the stream can identify with that, because I think everyone here could admit that this is a shitty world that we live in. We're all vegan here, so we know that it's a fucked up world. But that begs the question, though, of why you're not now an anti-natalist. And I guess this is what people are willing to hear. So you've just explained how awful many things in your life have been. What then is making you turn around now and say that I'm no longer an anti-natalist?
I think it's because I don't know that. Okay, so like one of the ways I have been explaining this to people recently is that deontology does not exist in a vacuum. So to me, antinatalism is a very deontological position. And I think that there's like, I'm not a hard deontologist, and I'm not a hard utilitarian either. I guess what, the debate bro community likes to call a threshold deontologist.
Well, I think I am as well. So tell me how this violates antinatalism.
Well, I just don't like, I don't know, like I can't see how can be definitely more ethical to not have kids than to have kids. And I'm not saying it's ethical to have kids, like, pretty much every reason anyone will give you that for why they're procreating is a stupid one, and makes no sense to me. But it's almost like if someone were to say, like, oh, it's through my calculations, it seems like it is more ethically beneficial to continue the human race, and I've decided that I want to be part of that. I'd be like, I don't know. It's possible that is the more ethical decision, but then you have to ask yourself, who are the right people to be doing that? It can always suck for someone to come here. I just think that what is the logical conclusion of antinatalism exactly? That's
Yeah, so antinatalism is never going to realistically take off as an actual thing across population. So all this stuff about, I want the human race to go extinct and stuff, which I do. When the human race does go extinct, it's going to just be through our own stupid actions. It's not going to be through antinatalism.
Well, so then you have the problem of wild animal suffering. And so then it's like, you have to decide, like, what is worse, okay, so preferentially, I don't want people to have kids. I'm not going to have kids, but that could, like, let's say everyone took that stance, that could lead to more disutility than utility.
Yeah, so with the wild animal suffering thing, I'm actually not convinced at all that we have any reasonable calculations to say that. I think our main points should hinge on the fact that, A, we know for sure having kids harms domesticated animals. It breeds them into existence. Like, even if you or I were to have a kid and raise them vegan, they could turn around one day and just be a breeding machine of pigs and cows and chickens. The wild animal suffering thing, I don't think anyone has ever provided some kind of convincing argument as to how humans decrease wild animal suffering at all. It's too hard to calculate.
I think it's hard to calculate any of this stuff. That's the problem. To me, it all seems like an ego stroke. And I know that I don't know how we calculate it, but I know that humans offer palliative care to animals. Humans are the only ones that can really assign rights to animals. And I do think that with the technology, with the advancement of the technology that we have, we could see the end of wide-scale animal agriculture in our lifetime. I think that, like, part of this is that I agree we live on a hellscape. I don't think there's any getting out of it. I don't think there's, like, any way around this. I think it's a catch-22. It's a paradox. You kind of have to just hope for the future. and hope that things get like that. Some humans make things better, and I think some humans have made things a lot better than they have been in certain parts of the world anyway.
Do you not think, even with the wild animal suffering thing, that I would say probably the most convincing argument that actually we cause more wild animal suffering than we reduce would be the fishing industry. 2 trillion marine animals, and the leading cause of death for them is suffocation, open air, or we put them just slowly to freeze to death on a bed of ice on the deck of a ship. Given that we holocaust 2 trillion marine animals every year, and the fishing industry does not seem to be going away anytime soon, do you not think? And I know there's things you can say back about stuff like deforestation and stuff like that, but I would just say, why even include that in the calculations? Because that in itself causes a huge amount of suffering to those animals in those forests because of us.
No, like this is the catch-22. Like, we cause a whole bunch of suffering, and then there's no animals left to suffer, and it won't. And then it stops a chain of suffering.
So you're saying that us driving away. I spoke to Benatar about this on my podcast, and
I know his response was hubris.
That was what he said near the end. But yeah. I asked him early on in the podcast. He about, you know, is it counter in any way to vegan values that we decrease the amount of deforestation as vegans? But here's the thing: say, I don't think that humans can actually destroy all life on Earth. There's always going to be some kind. I don't think human action,
I don't think nor the universe. You know, nor the universe, and I think that this anti-natalism thing is it's a futile effort. I think it's
hold on.
I feel like it's a pointless. It's just this pointless endeavor that's it seems like a waste of time, and we could be focusing on other ways to improve conditions for people and make and animals, and help people and animals and make them feel better. And I don't. To me, it's like yeah, I don't know if you're increasing utility or decreasing it by creating a child or not. Emotionally it feels like, oh yeah, that's probably a bad thing, but doesn't necessarily mean that overall it is. On a deontological level, yes, but we don't live in a deontological vacuum, you know, like we have no way to calculate these things. Most likely life is going to keep going on and on. You're not ever going to stop the cycle. So and the whole, and I know you're an ethicist, but no offense, but I mean, that taking it to that conclusion is just ridiculous to me. That seems insane. Like, I don't know what your on ethicism is, but I think a lot of these people think we can like blow up the world or something. Like,
well, no, when I say I'm an ethicist, it's not some kind of thing that I'm trying to do, like build some kind of super weapon or something like that. It's just that I don't want there. I think you are an ethicist because you don't want there to be any sentient life in the universe, do you?
I don't know like what the actual definition of ethicism is. I just know what the community espouses.
Well, there might be things that people. I just take the definition of ethicism to be very simple. You just are anti the existence of sentient life.
I mean, this is like, but I'm on the same. I'm also like, or this is like a magic wand thing, like, or I want everybody to be in an eternal state of orgasm, you know, like to me, that's,
well, yeah, that
okay. It's like, and now what, you know, like that doesn't, having that thought, or like I don't even see what the point of the label is. It doesn't do anything for anyone. This is an ego thing or a mental masturbation thing.
But could you not just say the same about someone who's choosing to procreate? Like, is that not an ego stroke? They're literally creating clones of themselves for narcissistic reasons.
It is. Well, pretty much all the time, every time it is.
So, but then ethylism and anti-natal.
Someone is like, I mean, actually, it is, but someone could also add on top of that, be like, yes, I'm doing this for like both my selfish reasons and because I believe that I can produce offspring that is going to, increase utility or something in the universe. And I don't know if they'd be right or not, but it seems like a more worthwhile, or it seems like I have a hard time saying this, but it's like a better reason to procreate. Like if you really believe that. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's true though. I just don't know. I don't know that it's better or not better to create a child.
So I guess you take a neutral stance now. So you're not anti-natalist, but you're also not pro-procreation.
Oh yeah, I'm not pro-natalist.
That's good. You haven't gone the full opposite way. Then it's all right, guys. We've still got him teetering on the neutral line. We can do some work on him. Well, look, would you not say that a lot of what you just said there just comes under an appeal to futility? You're like, yes, I know that you could just say the same to a vegan. Oh, you being vegan isn't going to stop the animal holocaust. But nonetheless, we live it by our actions. And even if I wasn't...
I think that we are like actually going to stop the animal holocaust.
Okay, and if we couldn't, hypothetically, let's say you knew that we couldn't, would you just become a non-vegan or just say you're not vegan anymore, but you're neutral on it?
I don't know. I think that being vegan is very symbolic. Because it says, look, I'm not like, I'm going to be on the side of people that are not willing to exploit others. I think I do believe that a world is possible where we can exist without exploiting other sentient life form, at least to a really like egregious degree that
okay.
we're doing it. Like I don't even think it's actually possible to exist without exploiting anyone. Like I think just by the nature of existence, we end up exploiting.
Well, hang on. You know what I'm going to say to that then, don't you?
What?
Well, then the logical conclusion of that surely is that's an even bigger reason for you to be an anti-natalist vegan. If you reject exploitation so much that you understand that even having a kid entails that they will exploit.
That gets back to deontology in a vacuum. That wouldn't be threshold deontology.
But I feel that this is leading to some kind of like nihilism. This whole kind of thing, like
I am
nothing.
a nihilist.
This is why you said you doubt the stream would go as long as an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think to me, anti-natalism has become such a boring and useless topic because it goes nowhere. Like I can agree that like, yeah, the universe is like shitty, and it's like I think that we are in some kind of hell, and I don't think you just get yourself out of hell like, oh, now I've decided to stop procreating and I'm telling other people not to procreate, and that's gonna like make this a much better place to be. Like, no, I think you're screwed either direction you go in with that.
But then why would you breed someone into hell? I know you're not going to do it, but I think given that you think life sucks so bad, I don't see the logical internal.
I'm not saying anyone should breed anyone into hell. I'm saying it's possible that just the continuation of humanity, like because it is that appeal to futility thing. It's not. I don't see it as an appeal. Actually, I don't see it as an appeal to futility fallacy, though. I see it as this is a futile thing. It's possible because it's so futile to stop human procreation, that it's just like that it would actually I don't know how do I explain this. There is possibly more utility in continuing human existence than not. And,
So
and we're
here's
just gonna go back in this, go in circles with whether it's offering palliative care to animals or preventing, the shittiest people from taking over the world, who are gonna just have tons of kids anyway.
Do you not think, though, that this could also potentially result in some crazy bullet bites? Because, yeah, I do, to a certain extent, agree with you that if we eliminate one kind of suffering, it might cause some suffering in another place or vice versa. But that doesn't mean, like, if we were to apply that logic in our everyday lives, that would surely result in some insane bullet bites. Like, let me ask you a question, for example. Are you glad that Madeleine McCann was kidnapped and murdered?
No.
Why not say to that it doesn't matter that she was, because her dying meant that it saved X many animals from suffering or blah blah blah. Like, why does that matter?
I don't know if it does. Like, if she she wasn't vegan, right? I don't really know who you're talking about.
You know who Madeleine McCann is?
Wait, no, I don't think so.
She's like the most famous missing person in the world. She was the British girl who was kidnapped on holiday in like 2007 in the Praia da Luz in Portugal.
I'm out of the loop.
How old were you in 2007?
18.
Oh, for sure you'd have known about it. You were the same age as me.
I wasn't really tapped in back then.
Okay.
I don't even know if I was fully conscious.
Louis Jero says never heard of her either. Louis, you have heard it. What? There's people saying they don't know who Madeleine McCann is. Everyone knows who Madeleine McCann is. You've either forgot about her.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I don't know the situation. Like, I don't think it. I think it was probably a bad thing. Yeah, and that's just my preference, because I don't want to live in a society where people can just get, kidnapped like that and have awful things done to them and disappear. I don't. That's a preferential thing. I don't know about the utility, I think it would cause disutility to live in a society where that kind of thing is prevalent.
So are you taking even a slightly nihilistic point on that, on kidnapped and murdered children?
There's no like inherent or objective right or wrong. There, in my mind, it is all subjective. It's all based on preference. I prefer to live in a vegan world. I prefer that we don't harm animals. I think it benefits everyone, like all sentient life on Earth, for humans to be vegan. I think that would cause it'll definitely increase utility for all humans to be vegan. I see us moving in that direction in certain parts of the world anyway, more so I think than we ever have in history. I think with lab grown meat and precision fermentation, within the next 50 years, you'll see at least a lot of at least a big chunk, maybe the aggregate of animal agriculture, fall out, and there'll probably still be, you know, these small operations that, you know, backyard sort of things that people have, which eventually I think will also be stamped out.
So yeah, look, here's my stance. While the human population does exist, we can work on things while actually reducing the number of us who will just fuck so many things up, including breeding all these animals into existence. People are going to procreate anyway, so even if say it was a good thing that the human race continues because somehow something good will happen, which I don't have a huge amount of faith in, but let's say that is going to happen, we can be anti-natalist anyway, knowing that it's actually not going to take off en masse and just actually not cause another person in our name to come into existence and be paralyzed, or to have childhood cancer, or to have all these shitty things happen to them. That's the way I would see it. We can work on doing things.
That gets back to the deontological vacuum. I don't know that that's going to increase or decrease utility. I don't know. The people, once again, it is like the people that are going to probably espouse anti-natalist ideas and really take them to the point where they're not going to have kids are usually not the people we're worried about causing a lot of the problems here. Like, it's usually the really shitty religious fundamentalist people that are going to, you know, that are very anti-vegan, very you know, conservative, and you know, bigoted. Those are the people that are probably going to create a lot more children and a lot more problems in the world. So it's catch-22 in my opinion.
But then we've discussed this before, though, right? Like, then if by having children just to counter those people, we're using children as pawns in a political game.
I'm not saying we should. I'm not saying we should, but let's hypothetically say that we do that. There are cases where any of us would use someone else as a utility. This is like the whole thing with threshold deontology, I think, is like, maybe you wouldn't, you know, kill one person to save 10, but you might kill one to save 1,000. You might, maybe we wouldn't bring one person into existence to save 10, but maybe we would to save, you know, 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever, you know, however you want to set up that scenario. Yeah. We do make sacrifices, or we do sacrifice other people and other things for what our preferences are and what we think is right.
I'm just kind of wondering, though, did you not kind of know all this, believe all this when you first went anti-natalist? Okay, there's all these philosophical conundrums about, you know, trolley problems and all that kind of stuff. You surely knew of all these philosophical things existing before you went anti-natalist, and you still decided that it's morally preferable not to force a suffering being into existence, and then the entailments of their existence, i.e. what's happened to farmed animals and all that kind of stuff, right?
I probably thought about it, but not deeply enough.
So do you think if these arguments were put to you before you went anti-natalist, you wouldn't have become anti-natalist in the first place?
I think other people did try to put them to me, and I think that I was very locked into I was married to the ideology.
And is that because you hated certain aspects of your own life so much?
I think that possibly it was that I felt so much, resentment. I felt, well, because I do agree, I still agree that pretty much all the reasons that people have for procreating are stupid, and it seems like it's very frustrating to see them bring people here for those reasons. And so I still hold a lot of resentment in that regard, but not as much. That now it's like it's kind of part of it is a letting go thing. It's like a letting go of trying to have that control.
And do you think that it was a good thing that you came into existence?
I have no idea.
And do you resent your parents in any way for creating you?
I did for a while. Now it's something I'm just not trying to expend energy on.
Do you think a part of this turnaround could come from the idea that, this is not to sound patronizing or anything, but could this be part of a coping mechanism for you to say that, like, you don't want to focus on like how shitty it was that we came into existence and all the shitty things we've done to animals, so you rather turn away from anti-natalism just as a way of not having maybe what you considered was a depressing outlook on your life?
I think that it hasn't made life any better for myself or anyone else, and I don't see how it could. I don't see that I've actually prevented suffering or increased utility, or like, I don't see how I've made anything any better by being an anti-natalist and focusing my time on that. So there's actually a great video that I wanted to share. It's not long. It's 8 minutes. I don't know if I can put it on like 1.5 speed or something.
Sure. Who's it by? What's it about?
It's Finding Gnosis, formerly Do Not Watch.
Yeah, okay. Put it on 1.5 and we'll watch it.
All right.
Alex, he doesn't want to have children. Yeah, we asked him that, and he doesn't. You can explain actually to Alex, Nick, what your answer is to her question.
No, I'm not. I preferentially don't want to have children and don't like the reasons other people have for having children.
It sounds like you're at a catch-22, Nick, because you think procreation is dumb, but while also thinking that anti-natalism is futile and maybe kind of dumb. So it's like,
I said it's a catch-22. It's a paradox. It's not something that can be solved, in my opinion.
All right, we'll put this video on then. Hold on, I can see your screen there. All right, feel free to play then, and if it gets too long-winded at any point, we can speed it up or I'll stop it or whatever.
He uses some big language here, so
that's fine.
Hopefully everyone can follow along. All right.
Anti-natalism, a personal opinion with limited practical value. Anti-natalism. Ultimately, it does not exist outside of our heads. Anti-natalism, as defined by sources like the Oxford English Dictionary and the Cambridge Dictionary, is a philosophical position that assigns a negative value to birth. For those who embrace it, anti-natalism may provide a personal sense of comfort by allowing them a supposedly good reason to prevent life from originating within their lineage. Yet, beyond this individual solace, anti-natalism contributes little to alleviating suffering, whether in the immediate or long-term contexts of human and animal existence. When individuals abstain from procreation based on anti-natalist beliefs, the primary outcome is the prevention of their specific genetic material from entering future generations. However, since our genes are already widely shared within the broader population through common ancestry, their absence does not meaningfully alter the genetic landscape or reduce overall suffering. In short, the choice to forego procreation merely avoids introducing one more unique genetic combination without a significant impact on humanity's genetic diversity. The true issue of suffering, while often linked to genetics, ultimately lies in the realm of consciousness. Because consciousness pervades life, a person individually refraining from procreation does not eliminate suffering, but only avoids the possibility of one more conscious being experiencing it. Even if certain individuals possess genes that may hypothetically reduce suffering in future generations, environments evolve, genes mutate, and no outcome is guaranteed. The unpredictable interplay of genetics and environment renders any attempt to control future suffering through procreative choices nearly impossible, leaving little hope for an effective solution in this regard. Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek often critiques ideologies that propose sweeping solutions to complex issues. His concept of total ideologies can apply to anti-natalism as well, which seeks to address suffering through a single, all-encompassing solution: the cessation of procreation. This perspective oversimplifies suffering by ignoring the diverse social, economic, and biological factors that influence it. As an ideology, anti-natalism offers a totalizing narrative that ultimately provides little practical value or reduction of suffering, functioning more as a thought experiment than an actionable approach. Moreover, even for those who choose not to reproduce, the absence of their lineage does not halt the perpetuation of suffering, as others will inevitably fill the gap. In fact, their resources might later be used to support more new lives, both during and after their lifetimes. History demonstrates that human populations can quickly recover after declines, indicating that the absence of some individuals from the gene pool has a negligible impact on demographic trends and the persistence of suffering. Another challenge for anti-natalists lies in the difficulty of ensuring their beliefs translate into action. In most cases of heterosexual sex, no contraceptive method is infallible. While tubal ligations and hysterectomies are effective, common methods like condoms and vasectomies still carry a risk of failure. According to the Guttmacher Institute, 2021, no form of contraception, aside from complete abstinence or certain surgeries to the female reproductive system, guarantees absolute prevention of pregnancy. This reality highlights the limits anti-natalists face when trying to prevent procreation solely through personal choices. Given these limitations, some have speculated that technological advances, particularly artificial intelligence, might offer solutions to suffering. Perhaps AI could one day provide instantaneous methods for alleviating pain or even outcompete humanity for existence, potentially taking over to the extent that human existence becomes no longer. Yet, entrusting AI to address such deep-rooted issues brings its own uncertainties and ethical concerns. The possibility of AI surpassing human control is unsettling and fails to provide a truly viable solution that is problem-free or even certain. Anti-natalism, while grounded in ethical considerations, ultimately remains a personal viewpoint with limited practical impact. It offers individual comfort but does little to reduce suffering on a global scale. By functioning as a total ideology, it simplifies the complexities of suffering and fails to engage with alternative approaches that might be more effective. Its reliance on individual choice restricts its influence on broader issues, and unintended consequences could undermine its potential benefits. Furthermore, the notion of technology or AI as a solution to suffering introduces additional uncertainties. AI's potential to surpass human control is far from reassuring and does not offer a clear path forward. Despite all of this, the author finds no morally justifiable reason to create life. The act of bringing a new being into existence appears to lack rational grounding, serving primarily as a means to fulfill personal desires rather than a thoughtful decision regarding the potential suffering of that being. Perhaps Arthur Schopenhauer expressed it best: procreation is not an act of reason, but a manifestation of the blind will to live. In line with Schopenhauer's philosophy, the creation of life stems from innate impulses, not from rational thought. This view reinforces the idea that, while anti-natalism may be limited in practical effect, it touches on profound ethical questions concerning existence and suffering. Recognizing the lack of moral obligation to procreate underscores the importance of examining personal motivations and the ethical implications of bringing new life into the world. However, it also reveals the need to seek solutions to suffering beyond the personal scope of anti-natalism through broader fields like medicine, biotechnology, and other areas of inquiry. Given the pervasive nature of consciousness across all forms of life, an individual's choice to refrain from procreation does little to diminish the overall presence of suffering in the world. In fact, their abstention may inadvertently encourage others to have more children, thereby maintaining or even increasing the collective experience of suffering. Moreover, since one's genetic material is already widely distributed within the general population through shared ancestry, choosing not to have offspring does not significantly alter humanity's genetic makeup. Therefore, anti-natalist-inspired non-procreation by an individual offers minimal impact on reducing suffering as a persistent human problem. The expression of anti-natalist ideas or sentiments thus appears to be merely a repackaged way of stating the long-held cultural notion that life is suffering, without providing a practical solution to alleviate it.
All right. Yeah, obviously, I think I'd need to. I mean, there's a lot of things there I could respond to, but I just noted a few down. The thing it mentions about AI, I mean, that, if anything, I think is a good argument for like not being so optimistic about, oh, humans, we can create all this technology and stuff. It's like this technology could ultimately fuck us over in some way and increase the amount of suffering in the world. It could increase the amount of animals in the world. You know, we could have some super powerful AI in the future that could maximize the animal holocaust. Like it could breed like trillions of land animals into existence or something like that. These are all very possible and quite realistic and scary things that the future of technology holds. So I think,
and I don't think anti-natalism is going to prevent any of that.
We don't know if it will necessarily prevent any of that, but we do know.
Look at the whole, if you think about all the sentient life there is in the whole universe, I don't know.
But
I don't know that it's making any difference at all.
But well, we do know that human procreation will at least it's only humans that can create AI and technology. So from that,
right now,
sorry,
right now,
yeah. So so maybe we should not procreate.
I mean, but well, there's a few different avenues. I mean, I don't think that AI is going to. I don't think it's actually going to do any of that stuff. I think that it's just as likely that we could figure out a way to put everyone in a state of bliss forever using, that kind of technology. But also, what do you want? You want all humans to die out. Then you have animals tearing each other apart. It's pretty ruthless. Wild animal suffering is pretty ruthless. Eventually, one of those species will evolve to the point of sapien.
But Nick, do you think that
it's just like, okay. Go ahead.
Do you think that the logical entailment of this would be to maximize your consumption of like every item you could possibly afford, just so that you clear the most land space? Like maybe even dairy, you could make some kind of calculation that like you could up your dairy consumption and that will clear so much grazing land that it'd remove all these wild animals. Like you could massively, because it's a very cheap and destructive thing, you could massively increase your consumption of paper. Like you could buy like a pack of A4 paper every day just to like get rid of the most trees. Like, do you not think the logical entailment of this would be doing that as like a form of activism, like overconsumption activism?
I don't know. I think for what I do know right now, like for example, I'm in favor of lab-grown meat because even though they still do use some animals, it's like the tiniest little fraction of the amount of animals they are exploiting right now who are suffering really badly. And so in our current paradigm, no, I wouldn't want to consume animal products or things that are gonna cause harm like that.
How would you respond to someone who said to you, I care about wild animal suffering a huge amount, and therefore I do not support lab-grown meat because I would rather we had animal agriculture, which is the most resource-intensive thing and takes up the most. I've never heard someone say this, by the way, but
why not? But why not? Why not be in favor of lab-grown meat and then just blacktopping the area that we were using for farmland?
Okay. And then I could just say to you, why not be in favor of anti-natalism and just be in favor of doing that?
One of them seems much more productive than the other. Like anti-natalism is not, I don't see it, like we're just going around in circles here. I don't see how it increases or decreases utility. Like we could we can make lab grown meat, use precision fermentation, we can blacktop big swaths of farmland, and actually use a whole hydroponic system to literally grow plants all the like on like basically like skyscrapers, and it will be and like grow like literally the cleanest, like best produce ever without allowing any like, you know, we can synthesize all the nutrients we need for, you know, the soil or whatever it is. We don't even need fucking animals for any of it with the technology that we have or are going to have. Like,
but do you not think that that being, I know you're not a pro-natalist at this point, but do you not think for those people who are pro-natalists that this is an extremely like sloppy way of dealing with all these problems? It's like, oh, there's a lot of problems with the world. I know what I'll do. I'll just pump out some kids. Like, do you not think that that is quite a,
yeah,
I don't know, just a regressive mentality when we consider what that entails?
Reckless. It's one of these things. It's like, I don't know how to explain it exactly. It's like all the all the reasons that people are going to give for having kids seem bad and are stupid, but it could be that procreation will still create more utility than disutility. Like, it's a real mind fuck.
Have you considered the idea that everywhere that humans also turn inhabitable pieces of land into habitable pieces of land and introduce suffering in those areas? Like in desert spaces, mountains, we breed, like we create factory farms in these areas where life would otherwise not exist.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think life probably still does exist in those areas. I think there's certain kinds of life that like are adapted to that, but maybe in this scenario you're talking about bringing in, yeah, like farm animals that normally wouldn't survive there, humans or whatever.
And then you have humans on top of that suffering in horrible ways. And then on top of that, you have liminal animals like rats and mice who have a constant supply of food to live off.
I think that technology is going to take care of a lot of these problems, and not every problem is going to be solved. And I don't see anti-natalism. Like, once again, I don't see how anti-natalism helps any of this. How does it?
Well, put it this way. Yeah. Anti-natalism is a 1,000-and-something-year-old theory. It's a very old theory. And 1,000 years ago, Al-Ma'ari would have been discussing this with someone else, and someone would have been telling him, oh, don't worry, soon enough, we'll have this technology that can stop this and that and that and that and that. And all it's happened over the next 1,000 years is it's got worse. I would say there's more suffering in the world now than there was at the time of Al-Ma'ari because of what we've done.
I mean, I don't know that.
Well,
I don't know if there is, because I don't know how many animals have, been displaced, or, the wild animal suffering versus the animal suffering in animal agriculture.
Well, I think,
and I think that this is like a little blip, like a little chunk of a little tiny piece of the timeline, where there's going to end up being a big, long piece of the timeline where, like I said, animal agriculture will be probably mostly gone. And, maybe we're all just little floating orbs that have this like constant, like basically orgasm every 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like,
here's the thing. I think vegan natalists overestimate the amount of wild animals that we'd be living in the world if we weren't here. Like if you like type into ChatGPT, for example, were there more wild animals in Britain at the time of the Celts than there are now? It wouldn't really know. It wouldn't be like, yes, you know, the whole, you know, back then, obviously, there weren't like big old cities and concrete everywhere. There was no concrete anywhere. And the population of the British Isles back then must have been at the most 1 million or something. But it wasn't like, yes, you know, there were deer just running absolutely everywhere. There was a squirrel here. There was just like you know, you look everywhere, there's animals all around. It would just be fields and woods you'd see the odd critter there. But I don't think.
How do you know that?
Well, look at any uninhabited piece of land on the world. You don't see just animals just running around like everywhere. They're still kind of like, and you can look this up yourself.
I mean, they're gonna, well, they're good at hiding from predators. So a human's like walking along that, they sense that, they'll go into their burrow, they'll keep a distance. I mean, but just like I live,
but then those would be there now. They'd be doing that now.
I live in a not, I don't know if you'd call it a rural area. It's a suburb, and it's a more woodsy, it's a more woodland kind of area than most other suburbs around Boston. But you know, I have wetlands right out in my backyard outside my window. And dude, I mean, I see like crows carrying off baby rabbits, and you know, I see fox and coyote. I hear coyotes at night, and you know, they're all fucking eating someone. And there's deer that run through the backyard, and I mean, I see all you know, and then you look out into the swamp, and there's all kind. I mean, every year I see an animal get eaten by another animal out there.
But every day you see people eating animals as well.
No, and that's gonna diminish. That's gonna diminish.
Well, there's an argument that it won't diminish if we keep breeding humans, because they're just going to increase the amount of animals bred.
No, but the technology is going to move to the point where it's too inefficient. It's so inefficient to continue animal agriculture that it's going to dwindle, and they're going to use. They're going to move towards lab-grown meat. There's a struggle with it right now, but that's ultimately where it's going to go. And then, like lab-grown meat, precision fermentation, these hydroponic towers, that's basically going to be the future.
But then, on our way towards that, what would be the idea of procreating? Why not just be an anti-natalist and move towards that?
I mean, I don't know what being an anti-natalist is going to do. You could say, oh, like, you know, like preferentially don't bring, for the deontological reasons, don't bring someone into existence. Yeah. But, you know, you can't move towards that without some humans.
But at most, we have a few thousand people in the world working on these lab meat things that we don't even know is going to come into the market anyway, due to the pushback that there is. We have billions of humans who are driving up on the way there.
Yeah.
The slaughter, the farming of sentient beings, who are driving up the massacre of 2 trillion in the sea every year. Why not just be an anti-natalist on the way to that?
I could be like I said, like a conditional natalist.
And how would you do that?
I could say, like, you know, I mean, that would take, I don't like, this is a hypothetical. It's like if I understood, you know, the science of you know, how genetics influence personality, and then how what environments nurture certain, you know, traits in a human. Well, it'd almost be like eugenics. It would be like you being a eugenicist. Be like, okay, well, we've kind of narrowed this down. Like the way humans breed animals for certain traits, and exploit them for there's certain dogs that they breed because they know they can do certain things and get certain jobs done. I don't see why you can't do the same for humans. And at that point, you're right, you could do robots actually. Robot might become sentient. So this is one of those things. It's like there's so many avenues to go down. This is why I'm not an anti-natalist, because I can't spend all my time trying to think about every exact path that needs to be taken to get to the ideal outcome. I don't see being anti-natalist as increasing or decreasing any suffering. I do think that being vegan actually has had a tangible and somewhat measurable impact on society. And
well, do you not here's the thing. The whole thing about if I don't have a kid, there's some suffering that can happen there. There's no actual evidence of that you have caused this suffering. It's not like by me not having a kid right now, it's my fault that like a deer is getting eaten like in this country over here or something like that.
What about that study that showed like the more humans, the less wild animals?
But the point is, there's no way to specifically connect you or your actions to that. Just even from a like personal point of view, as in like, I'm responsible for this. Surely you can understand that that like being a non-vegan, and that could with every chance happen with one of our kids if we were to have one. They are directly paying a hitman to murder all these animals every year. We can directly tie every animal that's murdered in that slaughterhouse to them, to that person. There's no way. It kind of sounds like a crop deaths argument. You know, when carnists are like, oh, vegans kill animals via crop deaths. It's like, how do I know that when I buy an apple, X animal was shot in Y field because of specifically me from buying this apple? That's what this kind of reminds me of.
I don't know how to measure it. I don't know how to measure it.
And that's the point.
I'm saying it is possible. It is possible that, yeah, like, oh, I made the deontological choice to not bring someone here, but it's possible that I decreased utility somehow. And
okay,
to a point that passes that threshold. And I don't even know what that threshold is. I guess what I could say is I realized I don't know enough to say I'm sure of antinatalism or pronatalism. I can't be educated enough in my mind to say I know that it is more ethical to procreate or not procreate. And that's why to me it seems futile, and I'd rather spend my time, like my activism time, focusing more on animal rights and other ways to help alleviate suffering.
And the best way to do that is to not have a kid, because that takes up your time. Although that could be a serious point, actually.
Maybe for some people,
yeah,
but it's also it is possible that vegans having kids, even though some of them won't stay vegan, it is. I don't know. Maybe there will be a study that comes out that says, yeah, like most vegan parents that have children, and the majority of the time the children do stay vegan, and encourage others to be vegan. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just giving a hypothetical, to.
Yeah, I mean, the page vegan army fails makes me have very much skepticism.
But I haven't really looked at that page, but from what you've told me about it, it seems like obviously they're going to show you the worst cases. They're not giving a balance of like, here's all the people who were born vegan and here's the percentage of them that aren't vegan anymore. They're just showing you the ones that aren't vegan anymore.
Yeah, but I can't even think of one instance of like a third generation vegan. I can think of, I maybe know like one adult whose parents were vegan.
Well, we're still young yet.
As a movement, or as me and
Yeah.
as in,
yeah, like as people having vegan children, it's extremely uncommon. It's only like I'd say millennials are probably one of the first generations where you're going to see even 0.5%, probably less than that, of the people having vegan, like raising their kids vegan. And that's probably the largest amount of people who have ever, vegans that have ever procreated in history. I'd be willing to bet. And then it seems like not most, but it seems like a good chunk of Gen Z and Gen Alpha are probably not gonna procreate or even ever get laid at all. So
Nick, I want to draw up like a very noob asymmetry just from what we were discussing a few moments ago. Let's say that you
Benatar's asymmetry, right?
Yeah, but obviously I'm no high level philosopher like him. So this is just going to be George's anti-natalist, very noob asymmetry, right? And it was to do with something you said a moment ago that I said that's the point. You said you don't know how to quantify that with regards to wild animal suffering. You do know how to quantify your harm with regards to domestic animal suffering and having a kid who causes domestic animal suffering. My very noob level asymmetry is you have wild animal suffering. You just have no idea. You can't quantify. You don't know to what level you're increasing or decreasing it. It's hardly worth thinking about it actually. Domesticated animal suffering, we know we can directly quantify from having a kid or from not having a kid, the amount of animals who we spare every year, the amount of animals we're directly responsible for abusing and murdering, the amount of animals we'd be responsible for abusing and murdering in those slaughterhouses if we had kids and then grandkids and then great-grandkids who were not vegan. That's my noob level asymmetry. You have wild animal suffering and domestic suffering. One side, you don't know, you can't quantify. The other side, you know, you can quantify. Taking that into account, do you not just think that maybe even just because of the principle of uncertainty, anti-natalism is the right thing to do?
It feels safer, but I don't know that it
look,
is.
Okay, you know what, Nick? I'm as happy with that answer as anything I'm going to get out of you on the stream today. Because look, I think
that's really emotional, though. That's not like
it's logical. I made an asymmetry. One side we can't quantify, one side we can.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't think so, because we're also not taking into account the people that don't give a shit about that and that are going to have kids anyway. And
we are taking it into account. We're saying they're doing something that is quantifiably bad. So we don't know what level of wild animal suffering they cause or decrease. We do know the level of domesticated animals. So we choose not to be like them. We don't procreate.
No, because the whole point of us not being like them is that there's people like them that are. This is where it becomes a paradox. That doesn't. Because that is once again a deontological. I think it's deontological because it's not taking into account the overall utility and figuring out what that threshold is. Even if we can't quantify the difference we make in terms of wild animal suffering, we know that we're the only beings on this planet capable of assigning rights to animals. So we're the only ones that kind of hold the key to protecting wild animals from each other.
But that's something we can't even know. We don't even know anyway. Again, I could just put that in the asymmetry. I could do 3 parts of the asymmetry.
Once again, there is that study. I would wish I had it right on hand. I hate to have to dig it up, about how when human population increases, the wild animal population decreases. But on top of that, knowing that we're the only ones that can offer palliative care, the only ones that can assign rights, and we are moving towards a world where technology is going to help prevent suffering for almost all sentient life. It seems like a oversimplification. That asymmetry seems like an oversimplification of what's going on here, and it doesn't seem like I can make the most ethical decision, or that antinatalism is the most ethical decision, like within that framework, which once again I think you have to put in a vacuum to make it seem like for it to be like, okay, choosing not to have kids is the more logically ethical decision, right? I don't think it works like that.
But then you could just factor in that the technology could also make it worse. And you can also just factor in that this technology will come, if it is good technology, it can come about just by us being anti-natalist anyway, because we know that realistically anti-natalism isn't going to take off.
Right. So then anti-natalism's a moot point.
It's not a moot point
it's not going to take off anyway. Like, it doesn't matter.
No, but again, if we knew for a fact that veganism was never going to take off, we would still be vegan, wouldn't we? I know that child murder is never going to stop. I know that burglary is never going to stop, right? I'm not going to do those things. I just apply the same thing here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that we can see, we can see a tangible. I think that it benefits us to live in a society where we are not where we're not murdering animals, and for the name the trait reason.
Do you think it also benefits us to live in a society where we don't breed people into existence who could suffer with locked-in syndrome, who get childhood cancer, who, while rape and sexual assault rates are as high as they are, will cause sexual assault or will be the victim of sexual assault or rape?
Yeah, I think that most people should not be procreating. I mean, I don't know who should be procreating, but I'd say if there was going to be some, let's say we needed some level of procreation for the whole, utility argument. I think it should be some kind of eugenics program, and not, and just so people don't, take my quote out of context or whatever, or misinterpret what I'm saying. When I say eugenics, I'm not talking about any specific race of people or any specific color of people or ethnicity. I think that there's probably good and bad genes throughout all of the human population. And so when I say eugenics, I'm just basically talking about selecting the best genes, regardless of what race or ethnicity they come from.
Have you spoken to other people in the anti-natalist community about this. I see Amanda's in the comments, by the way, so I don't know if you mentioned.
Yeah, I
anything.
mean, I was hoping maybe we'd like get to some comments and stuff because it looks like it's going nuts. I didn't even get to dig into it.
It's mostly people just arguing amongst themselves. We haven't had really many questions. I've had no super chats and not really many actual just normal questions. So there's not a huge amount of stuff.
Pointless. It's a pointless discussion.
It's not a pointless. Every discussion has a point. We're trying to reduce the amount of shit in the world, Nick. It's not a pointless discussion.
It has. I don't think it's reduced anything. You know, if you guys want to increase utility and decrease the disutility and reduce suffering in the world, you got to send a nice hefty super chat right now. You got to dig deep into those pockets. Dig deep into those tight little pockets of yours and send a nice fat juicy super chat.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be a super chat, but we're happy to take questions. But look, I mean, if we don't have many questions and stuff, we don't.
But at least just send a super chat just to make things fun.
But Nick, in any case, these discussions are discussions that need to be had because I think us two and everyone in the comments section, I think we're good people and we live our lives trying to do the right thing. If we can just talk, even in our own essentially microcosm here, just watching the stream about what the right thing is to do, then it's a worthwhile discussion.
It's funny when I posted that thing on my story saying I no longer call myself an anti-natalist. Someone sent me a message being like, "You're a big disappointment" or something. It's like
as if you're like the same with ex-vegans, I guess. Do you know what though? As hard an anti-natalist as I am, there's something about this that doesn't make me as pissed off with you as I would be if you were like an ex-vegan. And I just think it's because you still do think that the world is a crap place. You haven't gone like full idiot and gone, like.
No, I think it's so shitty that there's no solution to this problem.
Yeah, I guess we'd probably just go around in circles again because then it.
I'm saying it's like I feel like with veganism you can reach conclusions much faster. Like there's much more reasonable conclusions to be met with a lot less. That's not as easy to push back on, Olawale sent something.
Super chat here from Olawale. They say anti-natalism gang, big brain gang kids are bad for the planet and people. VG isn't right about everything. Sad enough to say, no new humans. We're full. Yeah, we have got a big old strain on the population, hospital services, longer cancer waiting times, overcrowding on transport, motorways are chocked to the brim, jobs are harder to get because there's like 1,000 people applying for every like little supermarket job. Is that something even to consider, or is that something that you would just say, well, this could just be evened out in some way?
I'd say it's possible that even when the population declines, because it will decline, or even if we forced it to decline, it's possible that there still might not be like, opportunities for people. We're hopefully technology will take care of that. Do you
know what? I have a slight counterpoint to that, though. Do you not think that just breeding more and more humans might actually slow down the rate in which we develop new technology? Do you not think that having fewer humans and less of a strain on our systems can actually help better with the development of technology and stuff?
I don't know.
Because I could be wrong. I'm not saying that, but it strikes me as the more strained a society is, and the more you have just a society going through a bit of a crisis just because of how crowded they are in many ways, that actually sounds to me that would put a strain on various services, including perhaps the rate in which we can develop new technology and just do good things. So even from a perspective of, oh, we need humans here as some form of necessary evil or something like that, you could just still reduce the population via assigning negative value to birth and wanting the population to go down as a way to actually implement new technology and speed up progress.
Conditional natalism.
Katie's asked me a very tough question here. Question for George: if you knew that 1,000 animals could be saved, would you undo your vasectomy? I guess this question has so many caveats in it.
Loaded.
Yeah, because
you could save 1,000, you could kill 10,000.
And then they could have a kid, and they could have a kid, and then too tough for me to answer, Katie.
This is one of these vacuum questions.
It's a vacuum. Yeah, in a vacuum, it might be ethical for me to reverse the vasectomy. I don't know if I'd be unselfish enough to do it, because having a kid, I think, would just so detrimentally harm my own life as someone who massively doesn't want a kid. It's a very tough question, is my answer. Is vegan gains mostly right or mostly wrong? Depends about what. I think he's mostly right about things because he's a vegan. But then he says the odd thing I think anyone would disagree with. We've got a comment here from Florist. It's not a question, but it's interesting. Veganism is inevitable since a worldview that fails to recognize humanity's position in the world inevitably leads to our decay. That's good optimism, Florist. I'm not so sure. What would you say to that, Nick?
It's inevitable. I mean, I think that we seem to have a tendency to be moving towards a more moral existence or coexistence. Still not great, but like, let's face it, you go to the a lot of the Western countries, a lot of the the more secular democracies, and things seem to be a lot better for a lot of people. And you can definitely push the vegan agenda much stronger in those places. So, and I'd say, those areas are trying to help encourage other places in the world to adopt similar politics.
We have a comment here. Ahimsa Abbott: having a kid ends up with generations of trillions of animals being exploited. I mean, I would agree with that. I don't think Nick is... Well, I think Nick does agree with that, but he thinks that would counterbalance in some way, potentially.
I mean, it could end, you could, you could have a period of, so we had a long period of there not being any big animal rights talks through history. I think I was at a Alex Hershoff, the Holocaust survivor.
There's something very relevant about him, but carry on with what you're saying.
I was at one of his talks, and he was talking about how I think he said there was the Essenes and the Pythagoreans, and there seemed to be this whole animal rights movements that was happening 2,000 or more years ago, and then for 1,000 years there was nothing. Like, it just was not brought up in history at all. And now it's becoming really relevant again. Like, you're going to have like these chunks on the timeline where things could get really bad, but then you can have, if you can make if we make a longer chunk on that timeline where things get a lot better, like, you know, sometimes things can get a lot worse before they get better. I mean, that's like, now goes into the whole, okay, well, overall, is there more utility? Are we, in the long run, is it going to be good because, you know, everybody becomes a floating orb that gets to have an orgasm every 5 seconds and, you know, doesn't need to use any resources, and we have free energy, and, you know, it just took a lot of crap to get there. I don't know. So it
Here's
could
a good
be true that, you know, we'll hurt a lot of beings to get to that point. But I don't know, like, who knows if it's so good that it exceeds the threshold for, you know, for us, like the threshold is reached where we're like, okay, it's better to keep procreating. I don't know.
So I just wanted to make a point before I go to the next comment about Alex Hershaft. Alex Hershaft is the Holocaust survivor who very famously analogizes, you know, what his family went through and what he went through in the 40s to what animals go through, and made the decision to change because of what happened, because of an experience he had. And he set up America's first animal rights organization, Farm Animal Rights Movement. His daughter is not vegan, and she actually runs like you could call it, I guess, an anti-vegan page. So this is the danger. So this is the perfect segue to the next comment. And I think we could both answer this, Nick. I know you don't identify as an anti-natalist anymore, but I think you'll have similar answers to me. The reasons as to why Keiko, I don't want a kid are flipping endless. I mean, why would I want a kid? There's every chance that they could grow up and be non-vegan. We're not like our parents. You know, we're completely different people from our parents. I don't like humans, and from a personal standpoint, it looks like hell raising a kid. I mean, pretty much every parent I talk to, they say, you know what, George, my kids are the absolute light of my life. I absolutely love them so much, and they're my world to me. But if you even have the slightest hesitation in your mind about having kids, don't do it. And some of them even confess to me, as much as I love my kid, if I could turn back the clock, I wouldn't have had them. My life is just like, I don't want to live someone else's life. I want to earn money for me. I want to look at my calendar and say, I want to go here, have my own free time. And I just don't want to add to the problem. I don't want to add another human to this planet who's going to grow up and possibly fund the animal holocaust. And even if they're vegan, I can't stop them from having kids, and then their kids not being vegan, and so on. This happens. Unfortunately, this happens. So for me, it just, why the hell would I want a kid? What's your answer to that, Nick?
Feels icky.
Fair enough. Right. I guess I don't have much more to get through on the stream. I think it's been a very interesting stream. You've been a very tough nut to crack, Nick, but I think it's been a respectful and good conversation nonetheless. And, you know, we'll remain buds, even though you've violated your ethics. I'm teasing a little bit. I understand you've thought about this issue like a lot, and obviously don't agree with you on this. But I do appreciate that you're actually coming at this from a logical and reasoned standpoint, rather than you're just doing the typical, like, dumb normie thing of, oh, you know, having kids is great because, well, we don't need to go through all the list of shit.
I've talked to people who are ex-anti-natalists, who like, you know, they'll say stuff about it being like, oh, it's, you know, I found out it was actually based in eugenics, and it's actually racist, and it's sexist, and it's this and that, and like, you know, yeah, very few people there's very few people who stop being anti-natalist, and the few that I've seen that do, obviously, like their reasons for going the other direction are just as illogical as people's reasons to procreate. So I'm kind of trying to be like right in the middle. I just don't know. That's all it is. I just don't know. And
right, cool.
it feels like I shouldn't be doing like activism for it if I don't know. So
okay, yeah. Well, thank you for joining the stream today, Nick. And yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation. I thank everyone else for joining us today as well. And yeah, thanks, guys. We'll end the stream there, I guess, and we will see you next time. So goodbye from myself and from Nick.
all right, see ya.